Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode 37 of the Office Hours podcast. Today, we're answering a question from my colleague and one of our viewers about how to prepare for your first job. Apart from that, we also talked a little bit about, being a junior on a team, a difficult plight of a co-op in a big organization, a little bit about imposter syndrome, and some related subjects. So I really hope that you'll enjoy what's about to follow, and let's go. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode 37 of the Office Hours podcast. We'd like to welcome back Mo, and without further ado, let's get on with it. Hey, Mo, how have you been?
Good. And you?
Doing well. Flying off to my vacation in 2 days, so I'm pretty excited.
That's actually exciting. Um, well, today I have some of the questions that you have prepared as well. Um, but there's this particular one that actually has my attention, it's we talked a little bit about it, and I'm also curious to know what you think about it now. And this I think it's a Carol. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name right. That's Carol, right?
Carol.
Carol.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the question is ways to prepare for a first job.
Ways to prepare for your first job. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, Carol is my colleague. She started recently, and I believe it's probably one of the first, if not first, like full-time job for her. So I think it's very pertinent.
Okay. So,
But it'd be quite a difficult question for me to answer realistically because I was preparing, if you could call it that, for my first job probably like close to 20 years ago. So
yeah, it's been a while.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a while, and the
Mhm.
situation was very different from what it is right now. So the following is going to be purely a speculation. uh so I guess the setting would be that you're a junior or a fresh graduate or a co-op, and you're just about
Mhm.
to join your first company. And I think we probably would keep it to the confines of like a more established company. I think startups is kind of its own vibe, so it's a little bit different from like a bigger company in terms of everything, right? Because it's way more chaotic compared to something that's already established. I don't know. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Um, this is true. It's true. It's actually different on both sides. I think the size of the company would be different. I mean, the way to prepare for the first job will be different based on like the type of company. I don't know. You know what? I don't think there is a very specific format for a first
Right.
job,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
because there are different factors that come around it, first of all. And also, maybe the size of the company is not the only factor, even. Because it could also come to how well you are even prepared for a job anyway. So, but I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. This is why I find it interesting, and I wanted to hear your opinion about.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think maybe even when people think about their first job, they kind of think about how they will be applying the knowledge that they've just obtained through, a university or a boot camp or self-learning or whatever.
Hmm,
And they
yeah.
kind of maybe even tend to neglect the practical aspects of it. It's like, dealing with HR, dealing with all of your taxes, like knowing what to do
Hmm.
there, like what type of documentation you need to collect, like navigating through all of the HR quirks, even like, booking time off. It's like all of
Yeah,
those things
that's
is something that you
yeah.
would never have to do before, right? And all of a sudden you're sort of thrust into this situation. I think the size of the company does have a bit of a bearing on it because the bigger the company, the more pronounced the HR will be, and therefore the more bureaucratic everything's going to be. I remember some people or some jobs you start and like, was I in that situation? Like I was in a situation where I wouldn't even get like my laptop for like first couple of days. I'm just sort of sitting there like, okay, well, I'm technically
That
already
must be
employed.
nice.
I'm supposed to be joining calls and stuff,
Hmm.
but I don't have a computer or something. It's rare, but it does happen. And I think in a smaller company that is more chaotic, they don't have that. Well, I mean, that's assuming remote, but not everybody is actually doing remote. Like, I think it's slowly starting to taper off in a bunch of places, especially for bigger companies. They're kind of pushing everybody to return back to the office. So maybe it's not that of a concern, but I think it's maybe somewhat of a concern. It was like, yeah, people getting their security access and all that kind of stuff. But I guess even for the job itself, what do you even do? Because job is not a university, it's not a boot camp. It's like a very entirely different beast. It has it has completely different patterns, um, and I think some of it you probably might have been told during the interview, um, but like in terms of routines and key people and your teammates and who you report to and what the schedule is like and all of those things, right? Because usually I believe most students fresh upon graduation, like if they have their life put together, they probably do have a calendar where they put all the things. But like when I was joining my first job, it was just like, oh, what's going on? You know, I
Let
was
me see.
basically told like
Mhm.
be at the office at this hour every working day and we'll start from there. That was kind of the introduction. But you know, at the same time, it was a small company and I was being basically the third person to join. So it's very, very different from, you know, joining a company with 100 people where like, okay, this is your onboarding buddy. Here's your laptop. Here's your badge. You know, go change your password to your account. It's probably set to like something, something plus some digits of your birthday. Most companies do this stuff.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, yeah. And
But y-
yeah, go ahead.
you know, I don't know if it's, now I'm thinking about it, right? Like I worked in a startup and in also like a bigger companies, like different sizes, I think. And now I'm thinking about it. I don't know if it's very different from your first day at school. I think it's the same. The only difference is that this here you get paid, and because it's almost like the same scenario.
Hmm.
But I think it could feel a bit like how do you say it? Like you could feel like a big task, like oh it's a job. But I think thinking about it that way just puts a lot of pressure on you to perform or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have this pressure, also depending on the personality type, it might help you or it might just be a burden if you are like really stressed. Like I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I
The
think
first step is to relax.
yeah, I think it's not that different from your first day at school,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, because you are the
School, you mean
one
like a
really,
university, right? Not like high
yeah,
school. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, university, because you, aside from like you getting like all the tools that you need to work, like I guess the ball is in your court at that time. Like
Yeah,
what you do after that will be up to you, like how
right.
well you want to
Yeah.
how seriously you want to take the job or how seriously you want to really
Mm-hmm.
impress or like do for yourself or something like this, learn for because like if it's your first job, most of the things you'll be doing anyway will be learning anyway. Like
Yeah,
you will probably be doing a lot of like experience gathering and stuff like this, and a lot of people would when they realize like you're new and it's your first job, they would probably understand and want to give you more arsenal, like more tools to your arsenal, and just like help you, I guess. I don't know if there is a format, but if you think there is a format, I would really like to know like
sure.
what's like.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, for a company, if they go through hiring,
Mhm.
and they like, I don't know, let's say they just have to hire a whole bunch of people. Eventually, that process gets streamlined, right? So it's not just gonna like the first person a company hires. Like if it's a founder and he's looking for the first employee, the founder probably doesn't know anything about hiring or onboarding or anything like that. But by the 100th employee, they probably have a pretty good idea of what's going on, right?
Yeah, they have the onboarding process.
Yeah. So I guess one of the benefits of joining a bigger company is usually, if it's not completely dysfunctional, they would have their process laid out and prepared in some way, shape, or form. Some do it better, some do it worse. And actually, going back a little bit to what you said about if people realize that this is your first job, and actually, it was something I believe that I said to Carol when we were speaking when she just started, and it was like, being a new at a company, you have an advantage that is not very long lived, but you do have it for maybe first 3 or 5 or 6 months. And then I want to expand on that idea further. But when you're completely new at the company, you can ask the most idiotic questions ever. And people will just be like, okay, well, he's new, she's new. They don't know what's going on, so I'm just going to answer. So you can question processes, you can question literally anything. Well, provided that it's not like, look at these idiots and what they're doing. Like, what kind of idiot came up with that idea? Like, obviously don't do it like that. But you can genuinely question the reasons for things being the way they are. Because after 6 months, the Stockholm syndrome kicks in, and you stop questioning. You just get used to. You just turn into the mode of, things have always been like this. I don't, even if I might want to change them, I realize the gargantuan amount of effort it would be required to do so. So I'm just gonna let the sleeping dogs lie. Like, whatever, who cares? But in the first weeks and maybe months of your tenure at a company, you can ask those questions, and it's actually a good thing because you might understand the reasoning and why it might not be the most prudent idea to go dig holes in that particular area for yourself, right? Or you maybe realize that some things are obsolete, unnecessary, could be done a better way, there's possibility for improvement, and yada yada yada. Maybe that kind of mindset is maybe it's a bit premature for like a junior dev, because again, they're at the stage where they're actually learning things. But anything eyebrow raising, you should get a reason for why it's done like this, and then you can actually make a value judgment and decide, it's like, that makes sense, or yeah, that smells kind of fishy, right? So that also contributes to your overall experience. But putting it a little bit further back, it's like, if this is your first job and you literally know nothing about like professional about employment and professional endeavors, you have a little bit extra of that same benefit, right? Because people will, I hope, tend to be more helpful toward you and your cause, and you don't necessarily have to be stressing out as much, because you can always be like, well, hey, I mean, it goes back to something that we've discussed a bunch of podcasts ago, but like, if you ask the same question 3, 4, 5 times, like, that will get on people's nerves. So don't do that. Like, if they tell you something, actually, memorize it and never ask those questions again. But yeah, there's that. Okay, so having said all that, if we kind of jump back to where we were with the onboarding, hopefully there's an onboarding, and doubly so, hopefully there's a person that you can ask all of your first day question, first week question to. Actually, for us, we have a document that basically spells out like the first day expectation, first week expectation, like first month expectation. And they just have the things that, you should be doing, people you should be reaching out to, some group meetings that you likely should be attending, things like that, like the tasks, familiarizing yourself with various documents in our documentation system. So it's like, on your day one, like, unpack your laptop, change your password, set up your Outlook, log in into Google, log in into Teams, like, do all of these things just to make sure you're plugged in and you can start getting information, like, change your photo in Slack, like, change your name in Slack so that people can know who you are, and all of these things, right? Like, it has nothing to do with actually writing any code. Like, the likelihood of you writing code, like, in first 2 weeks, in a bigger company especially, is going to be pretty small. So by the time you get to it, you've already been there for a couple of weeks. So it's not going to be like, oh my God, they're going to start asking me all these hard questions about algorithms day one. It's like, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I think too. I don't know if it's like it's not that there is a word for it in English. How do you say it? Like you're it's not fear, it's just like nervousness. No, it's not
anxiety.
that yeah, it's not that big of a I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It's not a very big task like that.
Yeah,
But you
yeah,
might think
yeah,
about it and then you just like create different
yeah, yeah.
scenarios. Like I guess sometimes it's possible to have like maybe it's also related to like another question like how to take care of like imposter syndrome
Mm.
because if you might not feel prepared, but you are definitely prepared for you to actually get the job.
Yeah, you've been hired. That's already an
You've been
indication,
hired.
you know. Maybe they're making like a gamble on you, but if you're a reasonable person and you've been hired, you passed a filter, so you can already kind of breathe out a little bit and relax. Obviously, don't
Exactly.
relax to a point where you're just not doing anything and you fail your 3 months probationary period, but like just relax of the anxiety of the interview, like that all is behind you now. Like,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
done and dusted, hopefully for at least next couple of years, and then that cycle can continue,
Exactly.
as we've
Yeah. Anyway,
talked about before.
another question was what are the realistic expectations of a junior developer? Realistic. This is a very blurry
Yes.
line.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What are the
So the to me, like as a person
Mhm,
who's onboarding a lot of juniors and helping them situate themselves in a team
mhm.
and doing all of these things, for me, I guess the biggest priority is for them to be able to learn quickly and don't be like don't turn into a dummy where you're just like, oh, like ask valid questions. If you don't understand something, that's, yeah, like going back to the benefit of being new. If you don't understand something, just say it. It's like, I do not understand it in the terms presented, can you explain it to me a little bit differently? Perfectly fine. But if you just nod and be like, yeah, yeah, I got it, and then sometime later I understand that you didn't get it, that creates a problem. And I understand that it may feel like, again, like maybe a piece of that imposter syndrome kind of starts rearing its ugly head. Like if I'm asking too many primitive questions, then they would think that I don't know anything and they kick me out and they fire me, whatever. Me personally, I never really think in those terms. I'd rather a person honestly tell me when they don't know something, as long as I know that they have the capacity to learn it. I don't care. I don't know infinity stuff compared to the amount of stuff that I actually know. So like, who am I to judge, right? There's plenty and plenty and plenty of things I don't know. If I were to be transplanted into some other domain, I don't know. If I attend, I don't know, nuclear physics conference and just be sitting there like, huh, what's going on? I'm not saying that I'd be able to learn and
For sure.
understand everything, especially now, but like you can get that feeling everywhere, and I would posit that everybody gets that feeling regardless of your seniority level. Because I don't know. I've done
You
martial
know,
arts for some time, and there's always a guy who's better than you, right?
for sure.
And if you know that, that makes it okay, because the whole point is it's impossible to be the best person because there's always going to be somebody better than you. The point is
Mhm.
to get better than you are currently. And if you have that mindset, not knowing something is just a precondition of knowing it tomorrow. Like if you ever watch Adventure Time, when Jake says, sucking at something is the first step of being slightly worse at something. So you have to go through the progression. First you suck at something, then you suck at something less, and then eventually you get better at it. But you can't psych yourself out of it and discourage yourself by saying, oh, I feel like I don't belong here, I'm such an imposter, blah 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 blah. It's like, you're there to learn as a junior, so do that and don't worry about it.
I agree with you. Honestly, I agree with you. Like especially when you said like you're there to learn. But the reason why I said it's a very blurry line, like the expectation of a junior developer is because
Hmm.
these days, um, maybe depending on the company, because there has been like scenarios where like you are somewhere and people expect you to have, especially if you work with like, depending on the type of leader or like the kind of person that you are working with, who is probably like in a senior role or like your team lead or something like this, they have some level of expectation that is not really well defined. Maybe maybe it's not very common. We might not see it nowadays because, I mean, like, for sure. But I remember like there has been times where like there are people who probably just like started like fresh out of school, and then they have certain tasks and they do certain things. And sometimes maybe the team lead is oh, why is this person working like this? And like, you get like, but this kind of stress and like agitation on their side is probably coming from other places too, because maybe they also have some pressure to deliver somewhere and then they relied on what you're supposed to do. And now they're passing down the information to you like, oh, you didn't do this well. And maybe someone also, anyway, there is the length of drama that comes around it, yeah. But
Yeah.
and you are expected to be responsible for what you do. No one else is taking the responsibility for you, because at the end of the day, it's a job, right? So I guess like the point will be like, um, how do you defend your work, like your level of experience as a junior developer? This is how I will be asking this question. Like, how do you
Right.
because like it's your first year, I fresh out of school, maybe all you knew before now was just like a lot of like algorithm questions, like how to do free and all this kind of things. And now you're faced with a scenario like this is people's life depend on this, what you do now.
Okay,
Maybe it's
if
just a
if if
button
you're
that
a
you're
junior
fixing.
and you've been given tasks where people's lives depends on it, something went really wrong. Like you shouldn't be in the
Maybe it's just a
position.
button. Maybe it's just a button. Maybe it's not like a whole feature. Maybe it's just like a button that you have to fix,
Right.
color that you have to fix here or something like this. And maybe you took like a day or so to fix it, and the
Hey,
decision you
junior
make.
developer, make the launch nukes button red just so we don't accidentally press it.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes some decisions you make might also be like influenced by another person in the team,
Right.
which is not even like the correct decision. So
Okay. Yeah, I see
there's a
what you
lot
mean.
of expectations.
I see
Like
what you mean.
the
Well, I have expectations of people that I work with, but I like to think that they're commensurate with their advertised skill level. So sometimes where I have some situations like, it's like, you say you're a senior, but you're asking questions a senior shouldn't have to ask. So that kind of gives me like a little bit of a sense of uneasiness at certain times. But for juniors specifically, again, as I said, like the primary expectation is
Mhm.
be able to learn, ask ask relatively good questions, and try not to get in the weeds for too long. And if you can't find it, like try to search for information yourself, but then like validate that what you found actually makes sense. And you have certain latitudes in the types of
Mhm.
decisions you can make, but ideally for junior developers it should be fairly well proscribed, like the type of stuff that you should do when you get your tickets. It's like, you know, and the color of the button shall be red, it shall not be green, and it shall not be yellow, and red it shall be. It's a very detailed type of thing. Like no one's expecting you to make all of these decisions at that level. You're implementing under other people's direction. And you may have some latitude here and there, but arguably being a junior is probably the most constrained because it has the least consequences, right? It's like the more consequences you can have for what you do, the more latitude you should have, right? Because you will then pick accordingly. But if you don't have any kind of if there aren't any major consequences for what you do, it has to be well defined. So like if you did it to the way that you've been asked to do it, what consequences could there be? The only thing that can go wrong here is if you do it like super late, or you take like 3 times the time or something like that, right? Because again, we're talking about junior developers here. We're not talking about seniors or staff or whatever.
Yeah. First thing is, I think, like, and this can be another conversation another time. Like, I think saying like, oh, you can ask any question you want, and then this is very common in the industry, right? You say, oh, you can ask any question, or feel free ask any question, but then you're being judged on the level, on the type of questions that you ask. Like this, first of all, it's a very big problem in the industry. So like, oh, you're like, oh, this person asked for this question.
Huge disclaimer. Everything I say is like a massive projection on what other people should do based on what I do. So yeah, Mo is correct here. That is not always the case. Actually, that's probably not even usually the case. Like sometimes you get thrown in the middle of a lake, you just dumped off a boat and swim to shore, whichever way you find that works for you. Those situations also happen. So maybe instead of sort of, we're developers, we like to just consider the happy path and the rest be damned, right? So maybe we should talk about the not so happy path. And it's like, if you're getting no support from your team, you've been thrown in, you've been given, it's like, here's Jira, go figure it out. Like, what do you do then? Right? Because those scenarios could also be realistic, especially for like, maybe, I don't know, maybe not for juniors, but for co-ops. It's like, okay, the company has an agreement with a university, the company gets co-ops, they come in, they don't know anything, they've been studying at a uni for like 4 years and they barely know anything. Okay, yeah, they know algorithms, but like in practical terms, they don't know shit. Like they're useless usually. My experience is it's usually it's true. I mean, it's harsh, but it's true. Like co-ops that come from a uni, usually they don't really know enough to operate on a level of a junior even. They have to be handheld for very long time. But the thing is though, if they're good, if they're interested in it, it doesn't last that long. Like clever guys, girls, they pick stuff up quickly and then, but the very, very first time, if they don't have any kind of supervision or support, they're going to have a miserable time. I remember talking to a person that I was mentoring through my school association, and she said she was working for this massive conglomerate company, and she was just kind of dumped in the middle of some team that probably didn't really need her or want her in the first place. And she's been given these menial, boring ass tasks that just like, horrible experience. Almost put her off the whole industry altogether. And I was like, oh man, I feel really bad that this is what you have to be dealing with, because, it wouldn't been like that in my team, I can tell you that much. But, you can get all sorts of teams. And so I guess that if that happens, it's like, what do you do? Do you despair, or do you try to like claw your way through it? Or, because, yeah, like for co-ops, sometimes, like, the expectation of co-op is even lower than that of a junior. And so nobody's really going to give them any important tasks because, maybe they'll take too long and mess up with schedules. Maybe they mess it up and we'll have to fix it for them. So it's like, it's all of the more work for us to get them through it, right? So usually people experience a lot of, well, maybe not a lot of, again, I'm speculating, but some amount of negative emotion toward co-op. It's like, oh, great, this guy, now I have to spend time out of my day to make sure that they do everything correct and don't mess it up in some horrible way, right? Like, it's a natural instinct. It's like, why do I have to babysit this person? But you can also think of it from a perspective of like, ooh, cool, fresh brain that hasn't been corrupted by all sorts of crazy, weird stuff. And, we can instill some good habits here. And, so it's the attitude, right? I haven't really been in situations like that where it's just completely sink or swim. Or if I have, how the memory tends to put the damper on the negative things. So you don't really remember
True.
that much of it. It's like, oh, yeah, maybe some bad things happen, but who cares? I'm way past that. So
Yeah,
I don't know if you have something to add to this. If you've been in a scenario like that yourself, it'll be
for
interesting to hear.
sure. This is why I kind of understand this question because
Does
I
it
have
like
seen
resonate?
no, it's just like I've seen people, I've worked with people who have been in a drama like this, because first of all, you say like, oh, don't worry, if you have any question, ask me. This is it. This, you know what? I'm just gonna put this as a disclaimer. Like, if you have any question, ask me. If anyone says that to you at work, check the question you're going to ask this person because there is a very high percent chance like you're being profiled based on your question. And the profiling
10 signs of
happens.
dysfunctional teams.
No, this is true. This is functional and dysfunctional. This is a very common thing in my own experience, by the way, like in my opinion. It's a very common thing in our industry because developers tend to be people with like it's common to find developers with a lot of ego, first of all. And then most of the time they feel like they know a lot of things, they're super smart. So when you're asking questions, they expect you to meet them at their level of intelligence. So, and if you don't get there often, now you're being looked at like, oh, this is not a very smart person, or like a junior person, like or a small, like you're learning kind of person. So like you're expected to come up at a certain level, and this does not even stop at junior developers. Like even when certain senior people or more experienced people have conversations, this happens subtly in that conversation. Both of them are checking their level of intelligence at the same time. Like this happens a lot. So the issue now is that this is a problem that happens like and affects like a lot of people's growth, like junior developers, because now they don't feel like they can ask those stupid questions. But you don't really learn a lot if you're not allowed to ask those stupid questions.
Yeah.
Stupid questions.
Yeah.
And and uh and also like there is no there are a lot of things in my opinion that forms your growth as a developer. Like if you have two senior developers in a room, they may not exactly have the same level of how do you say knowledge about certain things. Like you put them in a room, but these are the different factors to this. And it's the same as a junior developer too, because maybe you didn't get exposed to certain things in school, or like maybe you didn't know about certain. So like the level of knowledge is not even equal in the first place, and then on top of this you are just starting. So I feel like the quality of the questions in these places will be very crude. And I don't know if like I noticed that most senior developers already stressed, you know, about like their day anyway, and now they have to deal with somebody pinging them like 5 times a day, like, oh, this is what I'm doing. Do you think it's right? And now they have to get off what they're doing to look at what you're doing. They're already stressed. So I feel like then in that moment there will be some expectations placed on them, like, oh, this person does not even know how to do a simple this, simple that, and then now it's a problem that this person doesn't know. Meanwhile, they are relying on you to learn what they don't know. So like there is a big um gap here.
Yeah.
And
I see what you're trying to say. I think a lot of these things are valid. And to me, if I have questions like that, which I do all the time, because I tend to put myself up as like a source for like people. I tell everybody that they're like welcome to
Mhm.
ask me things. maybe I should make the caveat more explicit. That's like, have you exhausted all other avenues before knocking on my
See,
door, right?
you see, yeah,
And but here comes the balance, right? I said like don't go into deep rabbit holes learning for like looking for things, because again, exhausting all avenues, I mean, I say that, but like if they were to do that, it would take them 3 days or something. I don't know. It's much easier to just ask somebody that knows, right? So it's a balance
yeah.
between
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I never really do it in a professional setting. I only do it as a joke between friends. But there's a website called Let Me Google That For You.
Oh
And,
yeah, okay.
you just basically type the search. And when you give them it gives you like a short link, and you send them the link. And in the link, it basically like has the front page of Google, and it like types in the question
Mm-hmm.
and presses enter and like shows the Google results. It's like, let me Google that for you. It's like you could have Googled it on your own and found it, right?
Yeah.
Although there's
Mm-hmm.
something to be said about, I don't remember exactly who formulated this, but there's a phrase that, any sufficiently well constructed question contains within itself like 70% of the answer. So being able to ask the questions in a way that will get you the most correct answers is also a skill, and juniors people usually do not possess it, which you need to work on it. So it's a multivariate problem, and you have to make all of the different considerations. And having like trying to deliberately bias yourself by the questions that people ask, I think it's just a bad idea overall. Like you just need to catch yourself doing that and be like, don't do that, right? Because you don't know exactly the reasons and motivations. Like if a person consistently asks you questions that he can trivially find answers to, or other people have answered those questions before, like there is this understanding where sometimes it's like they're just taking a piss, right? They didn't have to come to me with this. They're just doing it because it's convenient. They don't want to spend time themselves. They like it was their problem, and now they're making it my problem. Like I don't want to have people where that's their
Mm-hmm.
normal operation mode, where it's they have a problem, now they made it my problem. It's like, I have a problem, I've investigated avenues A, B, C, and D, none of them worked out the way I hoped to, so can you help me with that? That's one thing. But just like throwing everything over the wall in my cube and saying, hey, figure this out for me, no, go away. But understanding,
Yeah.
like,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be like, like having, I don't know, I don't know if they do that. Well, it's kind of like having points on your license. The more you do it, the more
Mm.
points you accumulate on your license, and eventually your license gets revoked. So it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
Like you come in with way too many dumb questions you could have Googled yourself, you're going to be put on blacklist, and, that's it.
Yeah.
Off you
This
go.
is true.
And you only have yourself to blame.
Yeah, this is true.
But deliberately
This is
biasing
true.
yourself, or kind of having this reaction of, oh, yeah, this guy's asking this question again. Like, don't do that. Just mentally catch yourself if you do that, and try not to. Because why would I, like, if something is causing me stress at work, why would I punish a random junior for it because he happened to came to me with a question? That's just like a dick move in general, in life, and in work and in life. It's like, if somebody's been a dick to you in traffic, you're not gonna go home and beat your wife because some guy was mean to you
You,
on the road. It's the
oh,
same
you
exact
will be
thing, right? It's
surprised.
like,
You will be surprised, Vasili. I've
I
seen
know
things.
that I would be surprised. I'm just saying it as an advice. Don't do that. It's not serving anyone. You're gonna feel much better if you don't do it. So don't
Yeah,
do it.
yeah. This is actually pretty good. I think, yeah, we touched a lot of things, realistical things in this question, and I I hope Carol finds this conversation useful, because I can understand it, you know. There are some scenarios like that. I think one time, a while ago, there was this guy that used to, in a company I used to work with. Uh, this guy is fairly new, you know, like I think he had that like maybe about a year experience or something like this. And it would he would go to one particular person every time and just like ask this person, like, oh, I'm doing this. And for him, it was like
The chore.
no, not like this the guy, the new guy, for him, he was feeling like, oh, he could actually like go to this guy like with any. Meanwhile, the guy will come in meetings and say, oh, this person took like 3 hours of my time. I was spending. This is the reason why I didn't finish what I was working on yesterday because I was helping this guy with like his questions. And then the team lead would be like, well, so how is it? You know, like it was like now the guy will be giving reports and we'll be using this new guy as his reason for not doing what he was supposed to be doing.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
became like a thing. But like you said, like it's a process in the first place,
Well,
and
okay. I've been
you
in those
also have to.
situations before myself. I'm guilty of that. I wouldn't complain about it, but people would be asking me, it's like, hey, how come you haven't done the stuff that you're working on? It's like, oh, I've been helping so and so. The problem with that is usually that it's invisible to the management. But the other thing, which is kind of more important, and again, it's a kind of a skill that you have to have, is that he wasn't taking 3 hours of your time. You gave him 3 hours of your time. Nobody made you sit with him for 3 hours. At any point in time, you could have said, you know what? I have other things that I need to be doing right
Mhm.
now. I've given you some time, but I can't give you more at this point. Sorry about that. Try figuring it out some other way. But everyone, myself included, or not everyone, but a lot of people in Canada, they're like overly polite. They're going to be thinking, it's like, oh my God, this guy's taking too much of my time. But nobody's going to be like, hey, go away now. It's a
Mhm.
skill that you need to develop.
Yeah.
It's one of the crucial skills that you need to develop is just telling people no. And I know that maybe it's kind of feels rude and impolite, especially if you do it in a halfway, like, okay, it's been an hour and now you'd be like, okay, I'm done with this, right? But if you never say no, how are they supposed to understand that they shouldn't really be taking that much of your time? If you
Yeah.
if you always just give that time to them, that's normal. It's like, hey, I come into this guy and he helps me figure out all of this stuff. He's great. But meantime, maybe they don't feel like that. It's well, if you never voice your concerns to the person who's causing you these problems, they'll never gonna know. And if you're just gonna bitch behind their backs and tell everybody else how crappy they are for wasting all of your time, I think the root of the problem here is you for
Yeah.
giving too much of your time and not being
Mhm.
strict with your boundaries and allowing
Yeah.
being used like that. So don't do that. It's
For
a
sure.
skill. It's hard to learn. You feel rude. You
Yeah.
feel uncomfortable, but it works out much better in the end. And if people know exactly what they can expect from you, if this person knows that he can expect 3 hours of your time, he'll be happy to take 3 hours of your time. If he knows that he can take 15 minutes of your time, he'd be happy that he can get 15 minutes of your time. As long as you keep everybody happy with the time you give them, then everyone's happy. So it's
I guess.
entirely up to
Yeah.
you to structure that. But saying that, because somebody at work will see this and be like, Vasili, you're so full of shit. Because you spend 3 hours with people and then never finish your task. It's like, yeah, I do that, but at least I don't bitch about it. I try to work on myself to be better at it, but it used to be way worse.
Mhm.
Trust me, it's much better now of me being like, sorry about that, gotta go, can't really help you with it anymore.
Yeah. And to be honest, like finally, I think while being a junior developer and having this like luxury of being able to ask people for things and I think you would also build better muscles, if I could say, if you learn to find your own solutions yourself. Because at the end of the day, the people we call senior developers are just people who have been around for more time. it's not like they have like a bank of memory somewhere where they just like go forgot. I don't know. I mean, I might be wrong here. Maybe
Mine's
some
right
people
over
do.
there.
But at the end of the day, maybe they're just better researchers than you are or something like this. But
I think
the
that I have to, yeah,
sources are there.
yeah. I
Yeah,
have to mention that 20 years ago there was way less crappier information on the internet because there was way less information on the internet, period. So
yeah,
today, just digging through all of the things that feel like they could help you solve your problem that are completely irrelevant, is there's just more of it. So digging through the crap to find some chunks of diamond of knowledge in that pile, I think it's getting harder and harder every year. So there's something to be said about that. You know, back in
yeah.
the day, okay, you have an MSDN with the documentation, you go there, you find an answer, or you don't find the answer. Now you're gonna have 75 different blog articles that kind of skirt around your subject, but never really give you the specific answer to your problem. But you
Anyway,
still have to go through
yeah.
all of them to figure out whether they apply or not. Or for juniors especially, it's like, hey, we're gonna play the game of let's copy paste this snippet of Stack Overflow and see if it fixes the problem that I'm having right now without fully understanding what the hell's going on. That's a thing too. So
Yeah, I mean,
it's
the
tough.
thing is, as a junior developer, you should not be afraid to make certain mistakes, Like
Yeah,
in this is how you learn.
yeah. If you never
If you
make any
do it one,
mistakes, you're not gonna learn anything.
you make the mistake and wait for someone to I mean, I guess. Anyway, I'm just saying, like, you build better muscle because what I know also another thing I noticed is that because you have the freedom of someone give you the liberty to ask them questions, you might find yourself making a habit of it. Like once something happens, you're not even trying to think of a solution. The next thing you're doing is just like hitting on Slack, your keyboard, like, hey, this is going on. And you don't want to be like this for a long time because you may not really be developing your own self. This is just again, I'm not a psycholog, I'm just giving an experience, but I think like that might really slow the development down, like your
Yeah,
personal
yeah,
development. So it's a good thing to try it, to find your own way. I think in the company I work with right now, we have a culture. Um, when you join the company at first, you have a buddy,
yeah,
and for a while, and this buddy gets to answer all your questions. This is not a junior or senior. This is everybody gets a buddy, and you get to ask this person questions, and like after a while, you get a winning period. So I think maybe sometime like you reduce the communication
yeah. Ideally, you shouldn't have to.
gradually.
Yeah, ideally, you should
Yeah,
just taper off of it naturally.
yeah, you
As you
just start
learn
to
as
like
you learn the ins and outs, you should just stop asking them for things. You know.
yeah, so you have that winning period as well.
Yeah,
So like
yeah,
now you are more independent and like you can actually like do things on your own. So I guess this could be a culture for anyone else, like everybody. I think I find this very interesting. So I guess maybe this could be the way to go. But anyway,
yeah,
point here is like I hope like we're able to share a lot of information about
yeah.
these questions. I
Hopefully,
don't know
it was
if
worthwhile.
you have more to add.
Yeah, no.
Do you?
I think we're like around 45-minute mark, so this would be a good place to wrap it up. And yeah,
Yeah,
thank you very much for the question. Thanks, Carol. Carol's on a different team, but I know she's rocking it out there. So good job. And thank you, Mo, for being here. And I really enjoyed having this conversation. I hope we're gonna have another one
me
soon.
too.
Although I'm going
For
on
sure.
vacation, so that'll be in a couple of weeks. So you know,
All right.
for everyone that's still with us and watching, I hope you've learned something out of this. And if you have any kind of comments or thoughts on the matter, please feel free to reach out and let us know. Thank you very much and have a great day. Bye bye.
You as well. Bye.